Hi, welcome to the Agent Odyssey. I'm Matt Wyman, CEO and co-founder of Vicario. Today, I'm really thrilled to have Maitreya Wagh, co-founder and CEO of Bolna, join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Matt.
Awesome. Glad to have you here. You've been doing some amazing stuff in voice, an amazing platform. Can you tell us more about what you're doing at Bolna?
Of course. So we are a AI voice API focused on multilingual conversations. Both my co-founder Pratik and I were from India, and that's a massive market. Does over 1 billion calls on a daily basis. A lot of which can start to be automated with like a localized voice AI experience. And we sort of want every enterprise to be able to provide that to their customers and like automate a lot of their calls with voice AI. So we've been building for around 2 years, wherein this Y Combinator Fall 25 batch. And yeah, so that's sort of what we're doing.
And it's an amazing problem space because you are not only tackling voice, but you're actually thinking about the voice that the person on the other side wants to hear and needs to hear so it can be the most associated to them. And I wonder about what do you think are the gaps right now to get voice and voice agents mainstream? Like, what do we need to do to get there?
Yeah, I think from a technology perspective, we're almost quite there in terms of how well a voice AI agent can handle a call versus a human. I would say we're there already. Of course, there's a level of emotion, there's a level of I guess personalization that humans bring into conversations. And when you are doing conversations of like low scale conversations of very high priority, like let's say you're hiring for a CXO, or let's say you're providing extremely white gloved concierge services, I think it's the way humans are wired. We always like it that there's a human taking out their time to help us. So that's definitely something. But everything else, which is more outcome based, which is like a call where I want to derive a certain outcome of, and I don't really matter about what the intrinsic value of that call is. I just need this call to work for me. I think voice AI is pretty much as good as humans, if not better, in many ways. And the reason I say better is because there's a lot of things beyond just the call that voice AI can do, such as speaking in multiple languages, being ready 24/7, always being able to plug data in a much more easier and less error way than what a human might be prone to. So I think that's sort of where we are with voice.
So, I mean, that. I love that answer. It's maybe a little different than some folks because still there's a lot of challenges in voice, right? Like there's
Yeah.
If a person talks over the other person, they can get confused, they can get in loops, there are all sorts of sort of technical issues, but I think people are getting past those. If I'm putting myself on the business side or product management, a sponsor, building an agent, you're saying go after tasks that are very outcome oriented. How do I think about the risks? Like what are sort of the edges that I need to like focus in on?
Sure. Um, I'd say rather than go after tasks that are outcome oriented, I would say go after tasks that are extremely high volume, right? That
Oh,
tasks which would otherwise take you 6 weeks, you can now do in a couple of days. Or tasks that require a big team of humans to be available 24/7. And even then, you may have to get into like long waiting times and all. That is where you would probably start putting voice in. So I think that's sort of how a business should think about using voice AI. Coming to the challenges, yes, I think we're a long way away from teaching an AI how humans speak, right? And
yeah.
and there's so much nuance. Like you said, yeah, right now, but I didn't stop because I knew you were agreeing with me. But maybe if you had said a different word, I may have stopped and let you
Mm.
speak. And that's just like one level of the millions of nuances we deal on a daily basis. And that's why we believe an orchestration layer like us, which is focused on just bridging that human nuance, bridging that gap between where AI is and how humans speak, is what is absolutely necessary for every business to start adopting voice AI. I think a very random example, and we can talk about many more examples in the future, but a very random example is non-English speakers often don't speak only in the other language, because a lot of words you're just trained to speak in English. So for example, I'm fluent in like Hindi and Marathi, but if I'm speaking in Hindi and Marathi, maybe phone numbers, right, or any number, like 347, I don't even know how to say 347 in Marathi. I would always say that in English. So my point is, if I'm having a conversation with an AI, I want it to also speak in a Hindi sentence, but speak the numbers out in English. If it speaks English, I'll be like, hey, we're having a Hindi discussion. Why are you speaking English? But if it speaks the numbers out in Hindi, I might not even understand what they're trying to say, right? So there's a lot of nuance there, which gets built in multilinguality as well, which we're focused on tackling.
So now, so many questions in different directions. So I'm going to go in different directions on you just for a moment. The first
Sure.
it is that kind of, I'm not sure, linguistic or cultural linguistic interaction. Is that something that's encoded in the model, or is that something that the people who are imagining this voice agent have to sort of provide with the instructions?
I think there's three aspects to this. First is the model itself. There are some models which have certain capabilities, some which don't. 11 Labs, for example, cannot speak Marathi fluently, but a Cartesia today can. So there are very specific model limitations that have to be considered. Beyond that, there's a lot of work we do on the orchestrational sense itself, such as how does a function tool work when you're doing a Hindi conversation, but the PDF is in English or the CRM is in
Yeah.
English. How do you sort of merge that together? That's the sort of work that we do. And the third is the prompts itself, right? How do you write prompts such that the agent can be molded into speaking the way the user is speaking? Like for example, like KAR in Hindi is kar, but in English it's car, right? So if you write that word KAR, what should the AI think about it, right? There's a lot of ways in which you have to write the prompt so that it sounds a little more realistic.
It feels like this is the kind of thing that a person who's building an agent for a particular demographic or a particular region also wants to be able to lean in and do, because these
Correct.
nuances can be incredibly regional. Uh,
Correct. And it's actually very tough to so we're trying to productize as much as possible here, because let's say I am a bank who's getting calls from all over India, which is like 20 plus languages. I don't want to build 20 plus agents, right? I just want to build one agent that sort of understands the nuances in each language. And that's sort of where you would use a Bolna versus have like a team of 10 prompt engineers trying to build for every single use case. We can sort of make that much easier for you.
yeah, you can create an abstraction layer that
Exactly.
understands how to pull out the logic from the interaction pattern.
Yeah.
So if you're suggesting that people do these, high volume, high scale agents, does that mean you're also suggesting that there's, and I may just be reading too much into this, are you also suggesting that there are these clear handoffs to a human, that you're satisfying a particular set of conversations and interactions, and then kind of creating a delegation structure? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it works very differently for different use cases. For a lead qualification use case where I'm trying to understand whether you qualify for a course or a college or university or maybe uh, some healthcare practice or whatever, quite often what happens is we have a call, and then if you are qualified, we ask you for what is the time you would want to talk to a human. So there it's
Mm.
more completely asynchronous, versus a customer service where if the AI can't answer, there'll be an immediately transfer to a human wherever possible. Versus a recruitment where it's just defined that out of 7 steps of recruitment, these 5 are going to be AI, these 2 are going to be human. So it's very different in the way the human in the loop is working for different situations.
Yeah, I think in many cases, what you're describing makes sense. I think in many cases, human in the loop is used to replace testing, and that's really not the best use of human in the loop. It really should be to think about the texture of the experience, right?
Yeah.
Are you actually getting to that right next stage? Are you asking the right question to the right people, and then making sure the human is coming in to augment or expand the conversation? As I think about the voice agents, and you're a platform, and so that gives you a very unique perspective on, because you can see lots of different people solving different problems and building different
Hmm.
voice products. How do you see some of the packaging working around these voice agents and some of the pricing that's being done?
I think pricing works in 2 ways. And that depends on how close you are to the outcome. If you have complete control over the outcome, you would probably price based on the outcome, right? And then you have to really trust yourself, your prompting, your orchestration layer, your models to really deliver that sort of outcome. If you are providing a model approach or an orchestration approach, and we do a bit of both. We sometimes provide just our orchestration where you can do whatever you want. We sometimes provide an orchestration with a forward deployed service. If you're providing just the orchestration, you can't charge per outcome because you don't own everything.
You don't own it.
And
Yeah.
then it's simply per minute or per tokens that you would be charging.
And so, but what about the next layer down? but people who are building agents and turning around, because I would assume people are building agents on
Yeah,
Bolna and then
then
turning around and selling or packaging those agents as part of other
yeah,
software
and
downstream.
sometimes those people are forward deployed engineers itself. Sometimes
Uh,
they're someone else. Yeah, I think then it's gonna it's a mix, right? We've seen some people uh do a simple per minute basis, and the reason per minute works quite often is it's extremely scalable. You can scale up, scale down as your volume scale up and down, and it's extremely transparent. Like you know that you're not really wasting any money. But we have seen people start getting into the per usage, like per cart abandoned conversion or per collection received sort of use cases over there. We're seeing very less outcome based pricing today because I think people are still a little worried about how much they can trust the voice AI to come back. But we are seeing that increase on day to day basis. We're working with one company with a startup actually, which does cart abandonment calls for some of the largest mattress and furniture companies in India, and I think we charge them 5 cents a minute.
mhm.
They charge their customer between 10 to 15% of converted order value if the person they call comes back and purchases the item in 24 hours. So that level of specificity is only possible if you are extremely close to the client.
Yeah.
Otherwise, per minute just makes sense.
Yeah. No, you'd have to understand the outcome so well
Yeah.
that you know where that opportunity sits. Do you think this is going to change a lot as more and more voice agents start to make it out into the world and you start to see
Yeah.
the structures change?
Yeah, I think all application layers will become outcome based soon. But the model layers and orchestration layers will remain token based or permanent based because I mean, if I don't own the application, there's no sense for me in because I am paying 11 Labs or like DeepGram or OpenAI by the token. And that's sort of what I'll charge unless I am owning the outcome. If I'm owning the outcome, then it's the sort of risk that I can take based on our capabilities.
So, in a lot of respects, everything we just talked about is under the overarching umbrella of telephony. It may not literally be telephony,
It
but
is, yeah.
it's kind of telephony. But I'm starting to see people pulling voice into other circumstances to interact with their applications. Obviously, we've had note takers for quite a while in Zoom
Yeah,
calls and other types of calls,
yeah.
but we're starting to see more and more use cases start to show up. Does that change some of the things we've just talked about? Does that change the use cases? Does that change the structure and the risks?
I disagree, to be very honest. I think, and I'm sure like you have your whisper flows and all coming up who are saying, voice is going to change the way we've interacted with computers. And if it does, I'll be happy to jump on the jump on the train there. What we are seeing is, I mean, if you think about your average day or your average week, how much do you talk to a screen versus how much do you talk on the phone? Right? It's always on the phone that you're talking more, that you're having more conversations. And that's sort of why we do feel that it's still like 90-10 in terms of telephony versus um, anything else. Things could change. I mean, like I've recently started using the Meta VR, and I can see myself interacting with it via voice versus the extremely tough uh, texting form, the typing form there. But I think telephony is not going anywhere for a while.
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining that people who are working, especially in a group environment where there are many people in an office, are going to all be yapping away at their computer screens. And I have some gray hairs. A long time ago, when I worked at Apple, it was the early days of voice control. And a practical joke we used to like to play on one of our teammates is as we're walking by his cube, we would just say, "Shut down," and then his computer would shut down because there weren't any controls at the time. And so it's like you
Exactly.
just don't want that kind of crosstalk and background.
Yeah.
We're just not ready for it. On the flip side, I do think there are interesting cases about onboarding where a person talking about their business or talking about a campaign, an LLM or an agent on the other side can use that to figure out what was most important, and you might do that privately in a private room.
Yeah.
So I still continue to watch to see how it's all going to work itself out.
It's
So
very funny you mentioned onboarding. A dating website in India and a travel website in India, both of them use Bolna today for their onboarding. So essentially, what they're saying is currently the situation is you have to fill a long form. And even after
Uh-huh.
that form, you often have a human calling you and be like, hey, you filled this. Can you give me some more flavor on why you said that? Just remove all of that and have like a 10-minute conversation to totally understand for dating who you are and what sort of partner do you want. And for travel, what is the group size? Where do you really want to go? And we're still, I mean, the jury's still out there. I don't think both of these are like sort of POCs. None of them have gone into like being like, hey, now we don't need Google Forms anymore. But I think we're sort of going to go in a direction where if you're asked to write like a 10 sentence thing in a form on a website, I mean that I just drop off, right? Like
Yeah. I don't want to
I've
type
put
that
in my
much.
name, I've put in my number, I've put in my gender or whatever. And then it's like, okay, describe in 3 sentences where you want to. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you this. But if there was a call, if there was a way I would just talk to someone who I considered as like, a very empathetic, very nice person, I'd love to have that conversation and understand and help it understand more about me.
Yeah. And have it be interactive so that they can come back
Exactly.
and prompt you for that question or a little bit more detail and get it done all at once,
Exactly.
not have to worry about more. I'm just curious, by the way, what term do you use for this sort of voice interaction? I've been thinking voice experience, but what term do you use for this?
Hmm. So we say one is like I was like automating your telephonic conversations with voice AI is how I would put it to a business to in a sales pitch.
Yes.
But this would probably be a voice conversational experience.
I think we're still figuring out our,
We're still
our, our
figuring it out.
phrases.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
also voice AI has become such a trendy buzzword that everything from creating a voice like 11 Labs to transcribing, as you said, a meeting, like what a meeting note taker does and what we do or what Vapi and all of these voice AI players does is not at all, there's nothing in common between the two, right?
yeah.
But they're still all put in that voice AI, conversational AI bracket. So there's a long way to start understanding who's doing what and what are the
Same with us.
differences.
There's simulations different than evaluation.
Of
There's a
course,
there's
yeah.
a
So
universal. A lot of these
yeah, you
words
have
just get thrown around, and
you have
then of course we're
testing
crossing
suites,
over.
simulations, observability,
Yeah,
evaluations.
all gets
I don't think anyone understands who's doing what amongst the four.
yeah.
But yeah, that's
Well, and then collectively, all of us keep crossing boundaries. Many of the folks that we're interacting with that have chat agents are adding voice to it. And I have a number of folks doing voice who are adding chat. So
yeah,
it's not as though the modality is staying unified, right? Where we're
yeah,
seeing these boundaries. That's good. That's the experimentation we need. But it
exactly.
also leads me to think about, how people approach AI. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what human skill or what thing do we all need to work on ourselves so we can sort of better adopt and adapt to this new world of agents.
I think the way things have evolved and skills have evolved is you either need an extremely deep, differentiated knowledge of tech to now stand out as a coder, to like we've just seen that 80% of coding tasks can be done by people who have never written a single line of code in their life, but the remaining 20% can only be done by people who have an extremely deep, no vibe coded, deep understanding of tech. So my suggestion, and like whenever juniors in like my university reach out to me and all, I'm like, hey guys, either you need to get extremely good at coding, like much higher level than what a normal CS degree can teach you, or you just need to have an extremely and on the other side, everything else I think is going to be prompting. It's going to be how well you can build agents, how well you can run agents. For that, all you really require is really good critical thinking. So I think just and I'm from a Bain background, so I've been in consulting. So just learning what MECE thinking means, like how do you have create that mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive structure in your mind that I want an agent to do X, Y, Z, and can I write it in such an easy way that it works for me? That is a skill that people need to pick up. And the funny part about this skill is this is not a skill that you can get in textbooks.
Yeah.
It's a skill you can only get by doing more and more and more. And like we've just seen some of Bolna's employees when they come in, they've written maybe a few chat GPT prompts. But when they start working with our companies, I think we are some of the world's best voice AI agent prompters. Who have been created in 6 months by just writing prompts, writing agents, and testing them out.
Yeah, I love that. Critical thinking is such a key component, and there's so many. It's very easy to use these tools that feel as though they're doing something magical, and then get complacent. And I think
Yeah,
I would add to the critical thinking that it's critical thinking, and it's continuing to look
yeah.
at what's happening with a critical eye to say, is that really right? It looks good, but is it really right? Is that actually the
Yeah,
right answer? Is it going to keep working?
And even fixing it, because sometimes I think one thing that LLMs don't do well is fix their own errors. Because
No,
they've
not
made
at all.
something with a few mistakes, like, hey, fix these things, and you'll see something completely different with 3 new errors that have come up, right? So being very deterministic that, hey, this is the problem I want to solve by doing X, Y, Z. Yeah, that just requires a clear thinking, clarity of thought, being really good with your first principles. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? That's sort of where we're moving.
Deconstruction of the actual problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation today, especially all the focus on voice. I think it's something that everyone's really interested in. So thank you for joining.
Super exciting.